Imagine this: a man who stood on the stage every Sunday, a man millions trusted, a man people believed could do no wrong. His name was Pastor Malcolm River, and for years he was known as the voice of hope in the gospel world. But behind the lights, behind the applause, destiny took an unexpected turn. What people saw on stage was only one side of the story. The other side stayed hidden, locked behind quiet halls and closed doors until Bishop Arden finally spoke. You won't believe what he revealed, because even those closest to Malcolm never imagined the truth would come out like this. For decades, Pastor Malcolm was treated like a legend. His sermons pulled crowds from everywhere. His words spread across the internet like wildfire, and people swore his presence alone changed lives. But let me tell you, every great rise has a shadow behind it. And this is how the story slowly began to twist into something no one expected. While the world watched a smiling leader who preached healing and unity, a very different version of him was being seen by the people inside his circle, a version that Bishop Arden had kept quiet about for years until now. Arden said it didn't start suddenly. It grew little by little through small moments that people ignored. One meeting here, one decision there, one cold silence that stung more than any argument ever could. But here is the shocking part. Those small moments built into something larger, something darker, something no one in the gospel community dared to question. And this is where it gets interesting because, according to Arden, the turning point came long before anyone realized anything was wrong. Pastor Malcolm's early life was not easy. He grew up fighting for everything he had. He built his ministry from nothing, starting in a tiny neighborhood church where only 10 people showed up to hear him preach. Over the years, he pushed himself beyond limits, working day and night, growing influence, building followers, expanding the ministry into a powerhouse. People admired his ambition. They praised his drive. They believed he was unstoppable. But the craziest part, the same ambition that lifted him to greatness slowly began to pull him into a world where control mattered more than compassion. Bishop Arden said that the first red flag appeared during a simple planning meeting. On the outside, it looked normal. Everyone sitting around a long table, notebooks open, nodding as Pastor Malcolm spoke. But Arden saw something no one else did. Malcolm's tone was sharper, his questions colder, his patience thinner. He was no longer the calm, gentle leader they knew. He challenged people without warning, questioned their loyalty, and dismissed ideas without listening. And what makes this story different? Even the oldest advisors felt the shift, but no one dared to say a word. Arden explained that Malcolm had become strategic in a way that scared some of them. He planned every move, watched every response, and made decisions with a kind of merciless precision that left rooms silent. Those who once felt encouraged now felt judged. Those who gave their lives to support him started wondering if they even mattered. And yet, when Malcolm stepped on stage, he was the same warm, inspiring figure the world loved. People cheered for him, cried during his sermons, and talked about how he changed their lives. They had no idea what was happening behind closed doors. But destiny took an unexpected turn the day Arden witnessed something he said he would never forget. It happened quietly, without warnings or loud fights. Just a simple exchange, a cold stare, and a decision that shook even the strongest members of the team. And while the world kept praising Malcolm River, a storm had already started forming behind the curtain, a storm no one was prepared to face. Pastor Malcolm's story continued to twist in ways no one expected, and Bishop Arden said that the real unraveling began on a day that looked completely normal from the outside. The church was preparing for its biggest annual event, something thousands of people waited for every year. Volunteers rushed through hallways, staff handled calls, and everyone tried to keep up with the pressure. But inside the private conference room, where only a few trusted leaders were allowed, the atmosphere felt strangely heavy. Arden remembered walking in and sensing something was wrong. Though no one had said a word yet, Malcolm entered the room with a calm expression. But Arden said there was a different energy in him that morning. Quiet, calculated, almost unreadable. You won't believe what happened next. As soon as the meeting started, Malcolm began questioning everyone one by one. Not the usual questions about plans or progress, but questions about loyalty, commitment, and intentions. People looked confused. No one understood why he was suddenly doubting the same people who had supported him for years. Let me tell you, even those who considered themselves closest to him felt a coldness they had never seen before. Arden said Malcolm's voice didn't rise, he didn't shout, but the weight of his words made the room feel smaller. Every correction cut deeper than necessary. Every challenge felt like an attack, and every silence from him was louder than any argument. This is how people slowly realized that something inside Malcolm had changed. But here's the shocking part. No one dared to push back. It wasn't fear of losing their position. It was fear of losing him. They still believed in the man he used to be, the man who guided them, prayed with them, and lifted them through their own storms. One of Malcolm's oldest advisors finally gathered the courage to speak, gently asking why things felt so tense lately. And this is where it gets interesting. Instead of opening up or explaining, Malcolm turned the question back on him, asking why he felt the need to question the leader of the ministry. The advisor tried to clarify, but Malcolm didn't let him finish. The room fell silent as Malcolm leaned forward and asked if he still trusted the vision. It was a simple question, but Arden said it felt like a test with only one safe answer. What makes this story different? That advisor had served Malcolm for over 15 years. He stood beside him through struggles and victories. Yet in that moment, loyalty was no longer a bond. It had become a requirement. After the meeting, Arden found the advisor sitting alone in the hallway, shocked and shaken, saying he had never seen such a side of Malcolm in all the years they worked together. The craziest part was that no one outside the ministry had any clue the public saw the same passionate, loving pastor, while those inside the circle started to feel the cracks that were quietly spreading. As weeks passed, the tension grew. Arden said every meeting felt like walking on glass. No one knew what would upset Malcolm, what would trigger another unexpected challenge, or when he would suddenly confront someone without warning. People whispered to each other when they were sure he wasn't around, sharing their worries but too afraid to say anything out loud. And through all of this, Malcolm kept preaching powerful sermons that moved crowds to tears. It was almost impossible to believe the man on stage was the same man behind closed doors. But destiny took an unexpected turn again when a small disagreement between two staff members reached Malcolm's ears. Normally, he would sit them down, listen, guide, and help them fix the issue. This time, he didn't even give them a chance to explain. Arden watched in disbelief as Malcolm questioned their character, their dedication, and even their place in the ministry. The pressure in the room felt heavy, and even those not involved felt it deeply. Everyone realized that something much bigger was happening, something that would not stay hidden forever. The tension inside the ministry didn't fade, and Bishop Arden said that the weeks following that meeting were some of the most intense he had ever witnessed. Pastor Malcolm Rivers seemed to be testing everyone around him, pushing boundaries in ways that no one expected. You won't believe what happened next. Even the most confident staff members began questioning themselves. They wondered if they had ever really understood the man they had followed for years. What made this story different was that no one could predict his next move. One day, he would praise someone in front of everyone, and the next day, the same person would feel the full weight of his disapproval behind closed doors. Let me tell you, it created a quiet fear that no one dared to speak about outside the ministry. Arden said the craziest part was how Malcolm's influence remained unshaken despite all this. People who were terrified of making a mistake still showed up every Sunday, volunteering, giving donations, and supporting the ministry with all their hearts. The congregation loved him, the public admired him, and no one could see the invisible storm brewing behind the scenes. And yet, for those inside, every decision, every comment, every instruction felt like walking a tightrope. A single wrong move could change how Malcolm viewed you forever. But here is the shocking part. Even with this pressure, the ministry continued to grow, attracting more followers, more donors, and more attention than ever before. It seemed impossible, and yet it was happening. Then came the day Arden would never forget, a major project, one that involved expanding the ministry to a new city, was under discussion. The meeting was supposed to be routine, but it turned into one of the most intense confrontations Arden had ever seen. Malcolm questioned everyone's judgment, demanded explanations for decisions made months ago, and challenged even the most trusted advisors in ways that left them speechless. He dissected every objection, scrutinized every suggestion, and left no room for compromise. This is how people realized the real power he held. It was not just in his sermons, not just in his ability to inspire millions. It was in his control, his precision, and his merciless leadership. One young pastor who had worked closely with Malcolm for over a decade reportedly felt completely blindsided. Arden said he watched as the pastor tried to explain his point, only to be met with sharp, cutting questions that left him doubting his own judgment. The tension in the room was almost unbearable. This is where it gets interesting. Even though the confrontation was harsh, no one left the ministry, they stayed. They adapted. They learned to navigate this new side of Malcolm, understanding that his leadership came with rules they had never imagined, rules that demanded loyalty above all else. Let me tell you, it was a delicate balance between devotion and fear, and everyone inside felt it. But destiny took an unexpected turn when a minor disagreement escalated into a deeper revelation about Malcolm's leadership. Arden explained that during one heated discussion, a hidden conflict emerged, showing that Malcolm's decisions sometimes affected people in ways no one had realized. Careers were questioned, reputations were tested, and personal relationships quietly strained. And yet, Malcolm maintained his calm, inspiring demeanor in public. People outside the ministry continued to believe in the same man they had always trusted. They had no idea that behind the curtain, everything was different. The duality of his personality, Arden said, was both fascinating and frightening. By the end of those weeks, the ministry staff had learned to expect the unexpected. Arden said that everyone walked on eggshells, balancing their dedication to the ministry with the uncertainty of how Malcolm might respond to even the simplest question. But the craziest part was how everyone adapted, still giving their best while silently dealing with the weight of hidden conflicts and merciless leadership. The internal tension was growing, and everyone could feel that the story had not yet reached its peak. Something bigger was waiting, something that would change how they all viewed the man they followed so faithfully. As time went on, the pressure inside the ministry reached its breaking point. Bishop Arden said that the final twist came when a personal choice by Pastor Malcolm River began affecting not just the staff, but even his closest friends and family. You won't believe what happened next. A decision that seemed small on the surface had consequences that no one expected. Let me tell you, it caused whispers in every corner of the ministry. People started to question not just his leadership, but the very foundation of the trust they had built over years. And this is where it gets interesting. Even those who had been by his side from the beginning realized they didn't know him as well as they thought. Arden described a private meeting that changed everything. Malcolm called a group of advisors together to discuss a sensitive matter regarding the ministry's future. On the outside, it seemed normal, but inside, tension filled the room like a storm about to break. Every word he said carried weight. Every look questioned loyalty. Those present felt a mix of fear and confusion. What makes this story different? Even the most seasoned advisors who thought they had seen it all felt unprepared. Malcolm's questions were not just about work, they were about character, commitment, and trust. People left the room shaken, unsure of where they stood in his eyes. The craziest part, Arden said, was how Malcolm balanced this ruthlessness with charm. The public still saw the inspiring larger-than-life pastor who could move crowds to tears, while behind closed doors, he demanded perfection, loyalty, and unquestioned obedience. Destiny took an unexpected turn when one staff member, after months of pressure, finally spoke up. The response was merciless, calculated, and precise. Malcolm dismantled every objection, leaving the staff member doubting their own judgment. Yet, Arden explained, even after that confrontation, most chose to stay, loyal despite the fear, proving the complex hold he had over the people around him. Arden also revealed that the personal toll was immense. Relationships were strained, alliances tested, and trust broken in ways that few outside could imagine. And yet, the public continued to cheer, inspired by the man they saw every Sunday. But here is the shocking part. Those close to him carried hidden scars, silently navigating a landscape of ambition, loyalty, and control. This was the side of leadership that no one talked about, the merciless, human side that shaped the ministry as much as the sermons, the books, and the public appearances did. By the end, Bishop Arden said that what people needed to understand was the duality of Pastor Malcolm River. On stage, he was inspiring. Behind the scenes, he was a strategist, a leader who demanded everything from those around him. Success, influence, and power came at a cost, sometimes at the cost of the people who trusted him most. And this is where it gets interesting. Even with all the tension, all the fear, and all the hidden conflicts, the ministry continued to thrive and people continued to follow. The story was far from simple. It was layered, twisting, and full of moments that challenged everything the public thought they knew about leadership, trust, and human complexity. Finally, Arden left viewers with a question that lingered long after the story ended. How do we admire greatness while acknowledging its costs? How do we reconcile inspiration with the human flaws that exist behind the curtain? You won't believe how thin the line can be between brilliance and mercilessness. The story of Pastor Malcolm River was a reminder that even legends are human, and even the most merciless moments can coexist with extraordinary impact. And as the audience reflected on it, one thing became clear. The unseen struggles, hidden conflicts, and calculated decisions behind the public image are often the moments that define legacies, shape ministries, and leave the deepest impressions on those who witness them from the inside.